is abducted on Holy Thursday. He was last seen sitting on the steps of his home. He is approached by a Jew named Tobias, a doctor and a surgeon who was skilled with the use of knives. Tobias leads the boy to the house of a wealthy Jew named Samuel. The body is discovered days later, by Jews, in the Adige River, not far from the house of Samuel. There were multiple wounds and incisions on the boy's body, also evidence showing he was recently circumcised. It was clear the boy didn't drown, as his body had barely any blood left in it. The suspects were arrested and interrogated in the castle of Buonconsiglio. Italian Jews would go to great lengths to free them. The Jews bribed officials and schemed to break the prisoners out of jail. When this failed, they tried to assassinate the lead bishop overseeing the trials by poisoning his food. However, the bishop was employing 3 taste testers. The assassin was a Jewish convert. He was arrested and executed. Ariel Toth discovered that there indeed was a black market trade of Christian blood, used for medical purposes and for ritual rites. He writes, reading the depositions, one is left with the clear impression that rather than explain the need for the blood of a Christian child, the defendants were attempting to provide a description of the wonderful therapeutic and magical properties of blood generally, and of blood extracted from children and young persons in particular. The Jews would use powdered blood as a hemostatic agent or coagulant to be used after circumcision. Toth writes that Kabbalistic texts and remedy books from German Jewish communities, even into modern times, repeatedly prescribe young blood as highly effective for circumcision wounds and bleeding. Toth also writes of another grotesque Ashkenazi custom. During the circumcision ceremony, women who have not produced a male child will fight over the recently cut foreskin to be the first to eat it. The same way women today at weddings wait for the toss of the bride's bouquet. Jewish shops in medieval Europe offered oils extracted from fetid mummies, medicines containing powdered human skull, and fat from human flesh, but these were never to be extracted from the bodies of dead Jews. Young Christian blood was a precious and much sought-after commodity. Numerous confessions of the trials show that blood was put into the dough to make pastries. It would also be stored and doled out to less fortunate Jews in the community. The patriarch of the family was responsible for obtaining the blood. In this case, it was Samuel. Samuel would also lead the ritual. He would recite the 10 plagues of Egypt and ask the Jewish God to bring these 10 plagues against the Gentiles. He sprinkles Simon's blood, mixed with wine, on a table, and in unison they all say, "Vomit your anger onto the nations which refuse to recognize you, and their kingdoms, which do not invoke your name, which have devoured Jacob and destroyed his seat. Turn your anger upon them, reach them with your scorn, persecute them with fury, cause them to perish from beneath the divine heaven." The evening before Passover, they knead Christian blood into the dough to prepare the unleavened bread. When the bread is baked, they poke holes in it and say, "Thus may our enemies be consumed." And the bread is ready to be eaten. They testified that ancient rabbinical tradition says the boy has to be under 7 years old and of the male sex. In doing this ritual, it inverts the passion of Christ. This practice was never written down and only transmitted orally. During the crucifixion, the Jews shout at the child, saying things such as, "Thou shalt be martyred as Jesus, the hanged God of the Christians, was martyred, and thus may it happen to all our enemies." The Jews stamp on the ground rhythmically, as to drown out any memory or voice of the adversary. They make faces, and stick their tongue out, or spit, show their bare buttocks, and make obscene hand gestures, such as one called the fig, which is an allusion to the vagina during sex. The day after Simon was killed, His corpse is displayed on the altar of the synagogue. A sermon is given against Jesus and the Virgin Mary, using the Talmud. The rabbi then makes the fig sign, slaps the corpse of the boy in the face, and spits on it. Other members follow suit, men and women, slapping, biting, and spitting on the corpse. The specifics of this ritual could not have been known to the inquisitors. Toph writes, "These depositions describe exactly what was prohibited, what was permitted, and what was tolerated, all in meticulous detail. The murderers are put to death, either burned or beheaded, and the synagogue burned down, with a church built over it." It's important to note that Trent was a cosmopolitan city, with virtually no record of anti-Semitism in the past. In 1965, the Archbishop of Trent, with no new evidence, declared the Jews were innocent, and Pope Paul VI would reverse Simon's veneration as a martyr. The remains of the child were put in a secret place to end the pilgrimage. The church would be in full control of two other cases in Italy, from beginning to end. The first is in Venice, where a boy named Sebastiano was murdered. The Jews responsible were publicly burned at the stake in Piazza San Marco. The same occurred 5 years later in Padua, to a boy named Lorenzino. Throughout the 15th and 16th century, Jews were forced to wear distinct clothing for identification. Northern Italy would mandate a yellow circular badge to be worn. Other areas would change this to a yellow hat, and the women wearing a yellow veil. In 1569, Pope Pius V issues a decree expelling Jews from the Papal States. One of the reasons was practicing magic, superstition, and witchcraft. The Pope portrayed Jewish presence as a spiritual disease, threatening Christian salvation. The expulsions of Jews from Western and Central Europe would push them to the east. And where they went, accusations of ritual murder persisted through the Enlightenment. Because of accusations of blood sacrifice and other factors, Catholic seminary students lead a bloody riot that devastated the Jewish quarter of the city. On the first day alone, over 100 Jews are killed and 200 wounded. A boy named Gabriel is abducted and has his blood drained over the course of 9 days. He is a canonized saint in the Eastern Orthodox Church. A prominent member of the Jewish community is convicted of murder. He has his head put on a stake and displayed publicly as a warning. A priest named Stefan Zukowski led the charge against the elder. He would go on to write books about Jewish ritual murder, and commission painter Karol de Prevost to create depictions that would be hung in the cathedral. A Greek Orthodox monk and former Judaic rabbi writes a testimony on Jewish ritual murder, published in the beginning of the 19th century. The testimony confirms most of what we have already seen. He writes that he performed these rituals, being a former rabbi, but that not all Jews are aware of what he calls the blood secret, which is only transmitted orally and not written. The Jews who pass along this tradition are known as the keepers of the blood secret. Fathers who are initiated are only allowed to tell one son, the one that can be most trusted. The father lays a wreath on the son's head and explains in great detail the blood secret as the most sacred secret and the most important rite of the Judaic religion. The son is told not to tell his brothers, and especially no woman. Neophytos writes that the main reason Jews kill Christians and collect the blood is because rabbis secretly know Jesus is the Messiah, but refuse to accept it. For communities who do not have access to fresh Christian blood, rabbis will soak linen or cotton in the blood, let the cloth dry, then burn it and collect the ashes. The ashes are entrusted to the treasurer of the synagogue, and he mails it to communities in need. Before a wedding, a rabbi cuts a hard-boiled egg in half, sprinkles the ashes on each half, and the bride and groom eat it after fasting 24 hours. During Purim and Passover, every Jew, rich, poor, old, even the young with no teeth, must eat the unleavened bread. There would be many other ritual murders throughout Poland and Europe. As we approach the modern era and the rise of Jewish power, the charge against Jews will not slow down. But with Jewish control of the media and other institutions, making the charge stick will be a difficult task, due to the counter-accusation of anti-Semitic blood libel. In the 19th century, Jewish ritual murder accusations were so well known they began to influence literature. Grimm's fairy tales had more overt stories, such as The Jew's Stone, based on the Andreas of Rhyn murder, and another story titled The Girl Who Was Killed by Jews, and then more subtle ones, such as Rumpelstiltskin, who demands a firstborn child, presumably to eat, and the evil witch of Hansel and Gretel, who is fattening up a child to devour. The Jew, like the witch in the woods, is seen as being on the outside of society, a foreign goblin, waiting to snatch up the unsuspecting. A fountain in Bern, Switzerland called The Devourer of Children is an obvious depiction of a Jew eating babies. In Bram Stoker's Dracula, the vampire is an Eastern European, with an aquiline nose, bushy eyebrows, and pointed ears. He has an aversion to Christian symbols. He gives his vampire followers children to drink blood from. He hoards wealth and seeks to infiltrate Britain and be an economic parasite. The character of Dracula was highly influenced by Svengali, a character in George du Maurier's novel Trilby. He is an evil Ashkenazi Jew who hypnotizes and controls a woman to exploit her. The Jews were known throughout Europe as bloodsuckers, both figuratively as a usurer who drains you of all money, and literally as one who will drain and consume your blood.